had a guy that came up to me, a pastor, a very well-known pastor who changed my life. He came up to me and one day we had a conversation together about his son. And he wanted to do so much for his son. He loves his son so much. And he says, man, what did your dad do with you that I can't do with my son? I said, my dad and you both love their sons the same. No one loves the other son more. I said, your approach of loving your son was through bailing him out in money. You did not let him drop to the ground and lose everything. I went to my dad one day, I was in debt $49,000. I said, Dad, I want you to bail me out my $49,000. He says, I'm going to do one of the best things anyone's ever going to do in your life. You're going to learn how to be a man or you're going to lose it all. He says, what's that? He says, I'm not giving you a penny. I said, what kind of a dad are you? He says, you got to figure out a way to get out of this $49,000 debt. I said, I need some money from you. Not going to bail you out. What kind of a thing? What are you talking about? Not going to bail you out. Do you realize I was so pissed to my dad? I didn't talk to my dad for 1 month. 1 month. And we lived together. I didn't talk to him for we were roommates. Didn't talk to him for 1 month. A month later, I kind of realized what he was doing, that his position, he was staying firm. And I knew how painful it was for his son to not want to talk to him because I love my kids. I would be very hurt if my kids don't want to talk to me. But then look what he produced. You know, those are the things that we don't see behind closed doors. So we got to kind of be realizing that some people don't belong to, everybody wants to be called an entrepreneur, but some people just don't need to be entrepreneurs. Some people need to be more number 2, number 3, number 4 people in a company that's intrapreneur, but it's not everybody's job to be an entrepreneur, and times like this filter those people out. I hate to say that. It's just that's what it is. Now on the opportunity side, billionaires are going to be produced. New billionaires are going to be born. New heroes are going to be born. People you read about 5-10 years from now and how they created their wealth are going to do it during times like this.
Yeah, and look, Patrick, I've been saying my podcast for the last 2 years. I got a kick in the stomach in 2009 recession where I was nearly wiped out. We went to scale it to 500, we sold it. And I've always said, keep a fund aside, always. Save, and you did a really good video. I think it was 2 years ago I watched it when you said, I think it's McDonald's or Starbucks or cash or holding cash. And keep cash behind, keep 10, I think it's 15% of your savings, your net worth, keep it to one side. And I did that, I knew that anyway. Whereas other people were saying, look, now go all in, you know, cash is trash. And I knew, I've got a family, so I knew to keep that. And I'm now talking to the same people, asking for bailouts, asking when the government's going to fund them. And I'm thinking, you know what? It's going to be a harsh lesson, but you need to learn the lesson. Because with no cash, you've got no oxygen, right? And the business is dead.
There's no question about it, man. Look, here's the best thing, man. This is, you know, my philosophy has always been, be patient. Everyone's going to find the leaks in everyone's philosophies. And it's going to take 10 to 20 years to know which philosophy works during good times, bad times, great times, terrible times. And the bad philosophies are being filtered out today. That's all there is to it. The bad philosophies are being filtered out today. You know, people ask me, how come you don't make videos on parenting videos, like how to be a great parent? How do I know if I'm a great parent? I'm going to know if I'm a great parent once I meet my grandkids. Not until then. Until then, I'm not going to know if I'm a great parent. When it comes down to people talking about cash being trash, that advice is hurting so many people today, it is not even funny. Some people that took it. But some philosophies are evergreen philosophies. You know, saving money is an evergreen philosophy. Having cash and emergency fund is an evergreen philosophy. That's not just effective during good and bad times. That's an evergreen philosophy that you should subscribe to. And some of those old philosophies are coming back, and the stuff that our grandparents told us about that we didn't put a lot of attention to, you're starting to think about it and say, well, maybe grandma was right. Maybe grandpa was right on what he said about cash. We're seeing that all over the place today. Yeah,
and the immigrant mindset, obviously my parents are from India and yours are from Iran, but they're always kept cash because in them countries you needed cash. No one's going to bail you out. But going on the balance view, look, I'm watching a lot of content creators, you are. I've seen a real change in, without naming any content creators, where because they've always had just one opinion, their content is lacking so much depth. One thing I like about you, Pat, and a lot of my followers have mentioned this, is you always get a balanced view. You'll always get a balanced view. How do you maintain that against people who just say, look, no, I know this stuff. When I did this in 2009, I did this. But sometimes everything goes out the window sometimes. But how do you maintain the balanced view all the time?
My parents, my mom and dad are like politically here. Mom's a communist, dad's an imperialist. So think about it. Like, one believes rich people are terrible human beings. The other one believes poor people are lazy. And they're both right and wrong, if that makes sense. Because there are rich people that are greedy, and there are poor people that are lazy who are entitled. But I also know poor people who are poor because, certain things that happen to them. And I know rich people that are not greedy. They give away and they do the right things. I think the biggest part is the fact that I watched two different arguments my entire life, and I eventually realized the right place to be politically. In America, you see the eagle, the way the eagle is, it's got the left wing, it's got the right wing, and when the wings are kind of balanced, you fly the fastest. And that's why I'm generally on the middle. When both sides make their arguments, I kind of want to hear both sides and kind of see where they're coming from. And that gives me a lot of perspective. And then it's naive to believe you have all the answers. It's naive to believe that you're 100% right. It's naive to put things as 100%, even though many of us do it. It's just naive to do that because you don't like even today. My dad called me. He says he was a little bit worried. Let me ask you a question. How old were you the first time you were bombed on? He says, what do you mean? I said, you lived in Iran since 1942. You were born in Iran. How old were you the first time an enemy bombed where you were living at? He said, I was 44. You were 7. I said, I remember that. I said, up until that day, had you ever been trained on 10 keys to success of being bombed on when you have a wife and 2 kids? He says, no, I had no clue. I said, I watched you like you don't even know. I was the camera that wasn't around. I watched every movement you made. And you know what you did? You were so calm and poised. And you gave me confidence. That's why I didn't cry. I didn't look at mom because mom looked concerned. You gave me confidence when I looked at you. When I looked at you, I'm like, oh my gosh, everything's going to be fine. I said, we got bombed on 167 times in a day. You got us in a car. We drove over a bridge. 10 seconds later, you told us not to look back. We looked back. The bridge is coming down because the bridge got bombed on in Tehran. And then we went to a city called Karaj. And then Saddam bombed Karaj because all the manufacturers were there. And then we went to a city called Bandar Pahlavi right outside of Rasht. And then Saddam bombed the port because we were at the port. I said, how are we doing today after the war? Good. So when's the last time you thought about it? He said, I've never thought about it since then. I said, life's okay, ain't it? Yeah. We're going to be all right, Dad. Because we're survivors. We're fighters. We, historically, mankind's done okay. Dinosaurs couldn't make it out of this place. Well, we've made it out. We've been able to do okay. And I'm betting on everything's going to be all right.
So thank you for watching that video. If you want to see other videos and great guests, make sure you subscribe and like the video. So you can now head over to my website where you can see a bit of my story of building and scaling my businesses, and also all the free resources and tools which you can help you on your journey in your brand and your business. You can also subscribe on the podcast, so you can check on iTunes, Spotify, and other locations where you can find the podcast. And I look forward to catching you very soon. Thank you.